Now, if you know the history of the Christ Apostolic Church, from about 1928 to 1930, you will remember that Joseph Babalola was a tractor driver. And he was driving this truck, the roller rather, around Elisha, Akure, and all those places in Oyo State now. At that time it was a western region. But then the Lord spoke to him and told him that he should give his life to the preaching of the gospel. And he didn't know much about the preaching of the gospel at that time. Eventually, he said, okay, oh Lord, I will yield unto you. Now, it's a long story if you know the origin of the Christ Apostolic Church. But if you get to Efwalaye today, you will know that the Christ Apostolic Church, has taken root there very much. If you go to our area, you'll see that the Apostolic Church has taken root. Christ Apostolic has taken root much there. In some parts of the western region, you know what happened there? When you go to Efwalaye, for example, there was a particular forest that people never went. And the king there, the chief there, the kings in those days were powerful. I'm talking about between 1928 and 1932. The kings, the chiefs were very, very powerful. And eventually when he got there, he said he wanted to preach the gospel. Oh, they said, all right, if you want to preach the gospel, they said go to, the place they gave him was that a particular forest, a particular bush there. And there was a snake there in that forest. That if anybody went to that forest, they knew the person will not come back alive. And the people, when they gave him that place, that well, if you want to preach, that's a forest for you. And people warned him, don't go there because there's a snake there. He said, no, there is nothing. And then he got his people. The revival that broke out at Elisha, before that time. And because of the things that had happened, he had trained some people. The Faith Tabernacle, who were in Lagos here at that time many years ago, they invited him. They heard his testimonies. Some of them followed him to Ibadan and followed him to Elisha. Because of that process, some of the people had been trained and brought up under him. He got these people and they went to the forest and they cleared all that place. When those people came back, the villagers were surprised. Not only that, when Babalola himself went there, after taking authority over all the evil spirit and all the evil powers there, the people didn't know when they began to rush out. And they began to rush out to hear the gospel. It was the feet of the people that trod upon that big snake. They didn't know when they trod upon that snake, very long and very big and very mighty. And then when they discovered that the snake had died, that they just trod upon the snake and nothing happened to anybody, the king, that is Efwalaye king at that time, in the Yoruba language, at that time they called him Agbogun Sile Bomi Yemora. That means, he dropped all his juju, and then he had all his, the CSA with their water in the bottle and everything, that now he depends on the water and not on the medicine anymore. And they gave him a new name. That is, they Christianized him after he had given his life to the Lord, and in the way they understood at that time. And they said everybody at that time, it changed the whole of Efwalaye. If you lost anything on the farm, people will pick it up and bring it to the king and said, we found this on the farm. No smoking, no drinking, no idolatry, and all that. Although as present now, that city had gone back into what they were doing before. But at that time, it was a great thing. How did it happen? Because they broke the influence of the territorial spirit that made everybody enslaved in that community. Today, there are many people, they're just laboring on. If there is any territorial spirit, if there is anything that is going on, they are ignorant about it. And they think their preaching will never penetrate into the minds or the hearts of the people. Do you remember when Paul the Apostle went to, in his missionary journey, and he got to this particular place, the deputy. When he got to the deputy, he was preaching. And then there was this man, Bar Jesus. He was resisting because he had evil power. He was using his evil power is magical power, is power of sorcery to blindfold the deputy so that he will not receive the gospel. And so Paul the apostle stopped and he looked at him straight in the face. And if you have authority, many times you need to look at these sorcerers, witches and wizards, familiar spirit people. You have to look at them straight in the face and said, you fool, you child of the devil, full of all subtlety. Will you not stop to pervert the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ? And then he said, I, with the authority of an apostle, you'll be blind for a season. And immediately he became blind. That's power encounter.